Welcome back to the next chapter. Well, in the previous one, we tried to understand the identity governance of by Azure AD, okay, where we talked about identity lifecycle, access lifecycle, and the privileged access for administrators. Well, this is a fundamental exam. I have said it enough, but I have to mention it. That's the reason we are not getting deep dive for each and every aspect of security and compliance. We have to limit on the surface because this is fundamentals. But as soon as we are done with this series, start the other series as well, like 200, like security and compliance 200, SC 200, 300, 400. A lot, many topics will cover in pretty deep for sure. Anyways, let's try to understand the next chapter in the syllabus, which is describe the capabilities of privileged identity management, or PIM. And that is the only reason in the syllabus of SC-900 it says describe. That's all we need to understand what it is. Nothing much, and that's how we are covering the exam syllabus chapter by chapter. So PIM, I have given you a little bit of idea in the previous video, but of course I have covered it in detail in the other videos as well. But for the sake of this exam, let's touch it again with the capabilities, or describe the capabilities of PIM. So the very first thing we need to understand about the PIM is it's not a free of cost, right? You should have Azure ADP2 license for this. You're gonna pay for this service because this is a wonderful service. It is a wonderful service to have. So why it is wonderful service? Of course, that's the next question, right? Well, we need to see what all things that PIM can do for us and why should we use it. So very first thing is what it is, what kind of service it is. We get it, we need the license to have this service, but what kind of service it is, right? So let me put this here. This is what we need, but what it is. Well, it is a service of Azure AD that enables you to manage, control, and monitor access to important resources in your organization. It doesn't only include the Azure AD resources, but also the Azure resources. You can hook it up with your Azure resources as well, along with the Azure AD. And also other Microsoft online services such as Microsoft 365 or Intune, you can hook them up as well with PIM. So it is a pretty wide capabilities. It has pretty wide capabilities. It doesn't only belong to the Azure AD resources, but Azure or Microsoft online services or Intune, right? Well, PIM helps us to mitigate the risk of excessive, unnecessary, or misused access permissions. It requires justification to understand why users want permissions and enforces multi-factor authentication to activate any role. You can do that as well. So in previous video, that's what I was talking about when I gave you the example of help desk administrator. So it is like whenever you need the privileged access to do certain task, you can through the PIM. If the PIM is enabled, you can simply request to have that access, and there would be someone who will approve that access for particular time limit, can see why you need that access and give you the access. So here we'll come back to the first thing, what the PIM is. That's what we're trying to describe. So PIM is it's an Azure AD service. Okay, and it will, if you enable the PIM, it will help you manage, control, and monitor access to important resources. Okay, so the way we talked about it, this is what comes out of the conversation, and I think this is pretty explanatory. So let's see what are the different things that PIM can provide us to manage or to do all those things that we have mentioned here, right? So let's see what PIM can do for us. Okay, so the very first thing, let's stick to the basic that we talked about in the previous video as well, just-in-time access, and we mentioned here as well. If you need the privileged access, it can be taken care, like you can have only for 30 minutes so that you cannot misuse it knowingly or unknowingly. If you want to have some kind of privileged access, for example, an help desk administrator needs to reset the password for the senior folks, let's say, we can only provide that access for 30 minutes when he is performing the job, so that he knowingly or unknowingly cannot misuse it. This is just a basic example, but there's a thousands of things which require privileged permissions, and you can easily take care by JIT or just-in-time access. That can be easily be configured with the help of PIM. And there would be time bound. You can put the like half an hour, 1 hour, you can give the access just in time, right? You can also place approval, like approval based access. For example, you need the privileged access. You can request it, and there would be some approval. As I was saying, he would see why you need the access, and he can approve it, revoke it, block it, things like that. Now, whenever you send the request and somebody approve it, and whenever the privileged identity is activated, there is a wonderful thing which is called notifications. A notification would be triggered when privileged role gets activated, so that people are aware this particular folk or this particular engineer or this particular person has this privileged access for this long. Okay, and the fourth thing is, it is, oh, what I did, come. The fourth thing is, it is auditable. You can have the entire log or the history, who accessed what, at what time the approval is done, at what time the request is been made, and what he did with that privileged access. It is auditable. Okay, so now till now what we did, we tried to understand how can we have the PIM with the help of Azure AD Premium P2 license. It's not free, of course, because this is a wonderful capabilities, and to get those capabilities of Azure AD, we gotta pay, right? It's Azure AD Premium P2, remember that. Now, what it is a service of Azure AD which will help us to manage, control, and monitor access to important resources, or the permissions, right? And these are the different capabilities by which you can do this. Do what? Do this that we talked about. Do this particular thing with the help of these features. Okay. Now, why we need to use PIM? Well, I'm pretty sure till now you guys are already clear why we need this PIM, as I am already been talking about the lot of stuff like misuse and this and that. So let's try to understand. PIM reduces the chance of a malicious actor getting access by minimizing the number of people who have the access to secure information or resources, right? So this is a very good point why we use PIM to reduce the chance of malicious actor getting access. Security. By time limiting authorized users, it reduces the risk of an authorized user inadvertently affecting sensitive resources, right? Misuse or accidental issues could be taken care, right? Now, PIM also provides oversight for what users are doing with their administrator privileges, as I said, auditable. So that's why we could have the audits in place or oversight so that we know what is happening, who is doing what, which is very important. And PIM mitigates the risk to organization of elevated privileges. So that's why we should use PIM. The very first thing is the security. We should not have our, of course, privileged credentials hanging around in everyone's pocket. It should be time-based, approval-based, and auditable. That's why we use PIM. These are the capabilities, and that's how we describe it. Well, thank you for watching, and you guys have a good day. Let's meet in another video. Bye-bye.